Dear friends, this is a special game played with 4 queens. This game is played between Other-Fischer and Tigran Petrosian of USSR in the candidate tournament 1959. This game is Tigran defense. Please subscribe so that you can see all the great games of Other-Fischer. E4, C6, knight F3, D5, knight F3, bishop G4, H3, bishop into F3, queen into F3, knight F6, D3, E6, G3. Recent try is bishop D2 followed by castling on the queen side. Let us go back. Bishop B4 is played. Another try is bishop G2. Instead of bishop D2, in another game Other-Fischer tried A3, bishop C5, bishop E2, castles, Fischer also castles, and knight B D7. That gives black a good game. What the last move played is bishop D2, bishop B4, bishop D2. Now instead of bishop D2, bishop G2, D4, A3, queen A5. The last move played is bishop D2. Black replayed with D4. But instead of D4, if black plays queen B6, castling on queen side, D4, knight E2. That is good for white. And what is played is D4. Knight goes to B1. Bishop into D2. Knight into D2. E5. Bishop G2. C5. Fischer castles on king side. Knight C6. Queen E2. After queen E2, queen E7, F4, Petrosian castles on queen side, A3, knight E8. Also playable is knight D7, B4, F6, knight C4, B5, etc. But what is played is knight E8, B4, C into B4. Wide open. Safer is F6. Let us go back and see. Safer is F6, B5, if B into C5, queen into C5, F into E5, knight into E5, etc. But after B5, knight A5, knight B3, knight into B3, C into B3, king B8, A4. This gives equal chances. The last move played is C into B4, C4, F6. Fischer expected B into A3, F into E5. Last move played is F6, F into E5, f into e5, a into b4, knight c7. Black wants to secure queenside blockade. The pawn on b file won't run away. Knight a5, knight b5. Knight b5 is a excellent move. Fischer is getting outplayed here. Petrosian didn't even consider knight into b4, knight into c6, b into c6, rook f2, g6. On queen into b4, queen g4 check, rook d7, rook f7, rook d8, queen into g7, regaining the pawn. Let us go back and see what is the last move played is g6, h4, king b7. Here instead of king b7, rook h f8 is strong. But what is played is king b7, h5, queen into b4. Risky. Petrosian allowing so much of a counterplay. Rook h f8 is still right. On g into h5, let us go back and see. Rook h f8 is strong. Rook h f8 is still right. On g into h5, on g into h5, queen into h5, rook h f8, rook f5 is a very good move. But what is played is queen into b4, last move. Rook f7 check, king b6. After king b6, queen f2. Queen f2 is a good move. a5, not rook h f8. Let us go back and see. c4, c4 is a good move. Knight c3, rook into a7. But what is played is a5, c4, knight c3. Continuing to underestimate the danger, safer is knight d6. Fischer says knight d6 is better. But what is played is knight c3, rook f1. Rook f1 is not a good move. a4. a4 still playing with a reckless abandon. Safer is queen d6. Queen d6 is better according to Bobby Fischer. Let us go back. What is played is a4, queen f6, queen c5, rook into f7. Rook into f7 is a good move. Rook d f8. This is also excellent move. Queen into g6, queen into f1 check, bishop into f1, rook into h7, queen into h7, a3, h6, a2, queen g8, a1 equal to queen, h7, queen d6. In time pressure, Petrosian overlooks knight e2 check. Let us go back and see. Knight e2 check, king f2, knight into g3, queen b8 is equal to check, king a6, queen a8 check, queen a7, queen c8 check, king b6, etc. Let us go back and see. The last move played is queen d6, h8 is equal to queen a7, g4, king c5, queen f8, queen a e7, queen a8, king b4. King b4 is a very good move. Queen h2, king b3, queen a1, queen a3. Queen a3 is a good move because the only move to stop mate on b2. Queen into a3, king into a3. Now white has to make do with the g pawn. Queen f7, not queen into c3, king g, queen after queen f7, king g2, but not queen into f6. Let us go back and see. Queen into f6, knight d1. That is mate threat on f2. So therefore, after king g2, king b3 is played. King d2. Queen has come for the defense. King g3. A gross oversight, but probably the best way. White cannot win anymore if g5. Let us go back and see. g5. If g5, queen h4, the pawn cannot move because of this check. So let us go back. What is played is king g3. Petrosian played the brilliant move. Fischer completely overlooked it. He says a gross oversight, but probably the best way. White cannot win anymore if g5, queen h4, etc. Queen into e4. Overlooked Petrosian's last move. Fischer was a bit shaken. Not e into d4. Not e into d4. Knight into e4. Check, picks up the queen. King h3. Into d2. g5. Knight into f1. g6. d3. And black wins because of the extra piece. So what is played is queen into e4. Queen f2. Queen h1. Fischer offered a draw here. Black has an edge, but after fighting so hard, Petrosian was unprepared to readjust his frame of mind. So he accepted the draw. Please subscribe so that you can see all the best games of Bobby Fischer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time.